You had no answer. And you left town. And it wasn't that you got busy, you had to go record something, you had some executive meeting, because you're still tweeting right now. So you had no answer to what the Jag had to say. You had no answer to what I had to say. You had no answer for the storylines questions or the Brody Lee questions, which tell me that I'm right. You're wrong. Who's next? So yesterday, I made a Jags Jab video. Again, kind of reiterating what I said in a previous Make Me a Fan video about an open challenge. An open challenge where if anybody who disagrees with me or has a problem with what I say in my videos, to prove the Jag wrong. Now I don't think Cody saw my video, but he did see some things that I posted on Twitter, and whether he knows it or not, he unofficially answered the Jags open challenge. So we're going to talk about this. We'll go through, in case you didn't see it on Twitter, we're going to go through this interaction between Cody and I about what AEW is doing and how they're using talent, because this whole thing started when I saw that Lance freaking Archer. If you haven't seen it before, click the link above my head. We did a Make Me a Fan of Lance Archer because I didn't even know who this dude is. But after watching his matches, I said, man, this guy's talented. He should be the one to win the AEW TNT Championship. And I even did kind of a fantasy booking where Cody is trying to climb that mountain and win the title back from Archer. It was fun. It was entertaining. A lot of people liked it, but whatever. Cody hasn't seen that. Cody doesn't care. But what he did care about today was when I happened to say that it was bogus that Lance Archer, who's a top star, is wrestling on YouTube on AEW Dark instead of on the main roster on AEW Dynamite. I'm going to post some of these tweets on the screen so you can read along with me, and we're going to go back and forth, and I'll add a little commentary here and there. Are you ready? Let's do this thing. So I started out by saying, how is it that my man Lance Hoyt, aka Lance Archer, can beat two dudes at once, but can't beat Cody Rhodes? This booking sucks. I stand by that. He's a giant, he's athletic, he has a great look, he was the hottest heel in AEW, and now he's wrestling underneath guys on AEW Dark, on YouTube. All right. Now, that's no disrespect to the guys he's wrestling, but I've never heard of them before. John Cruz and Jesse Sorensen. This guy was the hottest heel, beating everybody up. Jake the Snake doing his thing. He's going up against the top face in the company in Cody, and all of a sudden he's wrestling John Cruz and Jesse Sorensen. Is there any chance that Lance Archer is going to lose this? So he's going to beat the stuffing out of these guys in a handicap match, and I guess he'll just continue doing nothing on AEW Dark for no reason. Now, the homeboy OC Steve and I went back and forth a little bit. I said, well, Steve said that AEW Dark is the land of misfit toys. I came back and said, but the check clears, meaning these guys are being paid well. I said it before in the Make Me a Fan of Ortiz, Santana and Ortiz. I talked about how well they're being taken care of and how their bodies are able to heal. AEW is a good thing except for the freaking storytelling. Steve made a little GIF. He posted a little GIF which said money versus quality booking. And I came back and said, it seems that plenty of people have made that decision and chose the check. This is a fact, people. But I didn't stop there. What I said was, however, in their defense, the original promise of AEW sounded legit, okay? That is how I feel. Everything I've read, heard, have been told about AEW sounded freaking legit and as cool as the other side of the pillow, but in the execution, it is less than stellar, all right? So then Cody Rhodes pops in, and he has something to say. He says, Dark is great, friend. I've wrestled on it multiple times. The current template in wrestling gives definitions to space and mediums, and I respect that, but we aren't basing our company on said templates. We strive to be a genuine alternative. So I think with his wannabe big words, I don't know what the hell that is, but I think what Cody is trying to say is we don't subscribe to the idea that the top guy should be on the top show. AEW Dark is just as important as AEW Dynamite, which is just as important as AEW Heels or the Deadly Draw or whatever that's on Monday nights on YouTube. And I think that's a little bit flawed. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell Cody that in just a second. But here's my reaction to his post. I wrote back, I said, yeah, no faces or heels, no templates, a bunch of Wild West lawlessness that seemingly has no direction. You might not have these, quote, definitions, but it defies logic that your top stars do not appear on your main TV show, and Lance Hoyt should be a top star. Lance Archer should be a top star. I don't know anybody that can disagree with that. If you disagree with the fact that Lance Archer at 6'8" and God knows how many pounds, he's huge, he's athletic, he's got a great look, a great physique. The guy's been in New Japan, he's been in WWE, he's been in Impact, he's experienced. The guy should be a top star. If for no other reason than his freaking look, but he's not. He's being put in a handicap match on AEW Dark, which Cody says that's okay because AEW Dark is just as important as AEW Dynamite. BS. Cody responds, there's definitely villains and heroes, or heels and faces, whatever vernacular you prefer. That's evident just watching the actual show. Agreed, Lance is an all-star, a beast of a competitor. Well, that's a great comment, Cody. Thank you for acknowledging the talent and the skills of Lance freaking Archer. However, if there are no faces and heels, if we're not subscribing to these typical traditional ideas and storylines and setups, then what are you doing? And I kind of asked that. What I said is, so why do you keep giving us Brody Lee instead? You bring in these guys with great fanfare, then your former WWE talent, you, Cody, or Jon Moxley, beats them, and the next thing you know, they're on YouTube and you're spouting off some nonsense about alternatives. I think that's a fair challenge. I think that's a fair question, because if Lance Archer is a top guy, an all-star, a beast of a competitor, as Cody said, and Lance Archer is on Dark, why isn't Brody Lee, who is not an all-star, who is not a beast of a competitor, who is not nearly as prolific and gifted as Lance Hoyt, who doesn't have the same upside as Lance Hoyt, aka Lance Archer, why the hell is Mr. Brody Lee on our show, on our main show, our flagship show each and every week? And I ask that in just 1 second. I continue in my next text. Cobb, Archer, Cage, all got fed to the artist formerly known as superstars. That means former WWE talent. And instead of explaining it logically, you want to wax poetic about definitions and alternatives. Here's an alternative. Give the people what they want, which is coincidentally what you promised in the first damn place. That's my opinion. And if you disagree with that, that's fine. But it's going to be hard to disagree with that, because if you look at the talent of Brody Lee in the ring versus the talent of Lance Archer in the ring, it doesn't make sense that they would continue to push this Dark Order thing. It is universally panned and universally hated by the majority, 90% of AEW fans, but they continue to push it. So if we're not doing traditional heel and face, if AEW Dark is just as important as AEW Dynamite, then why the hell isn't Brody Lee's ass on Dark instead of on Dynamite every week? Why do we keep seeing Jericho versus Orange Cassidy debates and stupid BS and comedy skits? Why do we keep seeing stuff with the damn drone? Well, come on, man, give the people what the hell they want. And that's what I asked for. And I think that's fair. And Cody comes back with this. He says, sports-based wrestling. Really? With all these flips and dives and silliness? Sports-based? All right, sports-based wrestling. Somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. No doubt you'll see folks like Archer and Cage all over Dynamite, as they are major players and they do the work. Giving people what they want is the goal. The last 3 weeks is the best of our best viewership, is exciting as F, okay, AF. Now, that's cool, Cody. You think that because you've had great viewership for the last 3 weeks, that means you're giving the people what you want, but you're wrong. The ratings, yeah, sure, maybe you think that you're giving people what they want because they're watching, but your core audience is not growing. The same 650 to 800,000 fans tune in week after week. You haven't gotten up to the 900 or the million, and you sure as hell aren't where you were when you first debuted, because people tuned in looking for sports-based wrestling. They tuned in looking for an alternative to WWE, and they found gymnastics with friends. Gymnastics with homies, and that's what we have, is gymnastics with homies and pet projects like the Dark Order and your wife's stupid tag team thing and the Nightmare Sisters and the Nightmare Collective and the blah 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 blah, and they're sick of it. Yes, the core audience is still there, but are you growing? No. Now, after he said this, I had something else to say. In response to Cody's tweet about sports-based wrestling, I responded. I said, hey, yes, someone has to win and someone has to lose, but it should make sense and it should further the storyline or the angle. And I asked, what story are you telling with Lance Archer right now? Can anybody tell me? Big man beating up on Marco Stunt, big man beating up on these little guys, now big man beating up on 2 guys. Where is this going? Why should I care? What is this building to? How is this selling tickets? How is this making me want to tune in next week? Oh, the big guy who was once considered a star is now just beating up on some no-name guys, and this sucks. Let me fast forward. This doesn't make sense to anybody but you and your friends. Remember, he said all friends wrestling. That means the elite. The only person that this makes sense to is Cody, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and freaking Tony Khan. I'm sorry, Cody and Tony Khan. This is ridiculous, man. You think that this is sports-based? You think that AEW Dark is just as important as AEW Dynamite? Prove it. Mix things up. Put Brody Lee's ass on Dark for a few weeks and bring Lance Archer to Dynamite and give him a worthwhile, meaningful feud. As a matter of fact, I asked Cody why Lance Archer doesn't have a meaningful feud. Let me get to that. After Cody's post, which I read previously about there's definitely villains and heroes, whatever, just doesn't want to use that vernacular, I came back and said an alternative to common sense. An alternative to linear storytelling is no alternative at all. If you had a worthwhile feud for Archer, he'd be on Dynamite. But you don't. You can fit the Young Bucks pet project, The Dark Order, in each week, but Lance gets to be an alternative. And I finished that tweet off by saying lame. And of course, OC Steve came in with the cosign No Lies Detected. And then I came through and put on my Jim Cornette hat, if you will, and I had to give him a little bit of a history lesson. I don't know. The guy should know this, and I think he does know this, but he's kind of trapped. I almost feel for Cody. I kind of want to break him out of there. But it says, I wrote this. I said, guess what? The template works. Faces and heels, storylines, angles, the traditional definitions, top guy on the top card, that works. But Cody doesn't want to acknowledge that, so I continue. Top guys go on the top card of the show. What you're suggesting would be akin to Vince McMahon having Undertaker wrestle on Velocity instead of Raw, their flagship show. This is ass backwards, Cody, and you know it. Now, I don't think there's any denying that. If you have a guy who's an amazing star, who has the potential to be the main heel or one of the top heels on the card, you don't put him on Shotgun Saturday Night. You don't put him on Velocity. You don't put him on Superstars at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning, whatever. You put him on the main show. You put him on Raw. But Cody is trying to convince you that AEW Dark is just as good as the major... Why isn't Cody defending the TNT Championship on Dark? Anybody? Oh, because he wants to be seen. Because he thinks it deserves to be on television. He thinks it deserves to be seen by hundreds of thousands of people instead of the people. I guess there's still hundreds of thousands of people on social media, on YouTube. But it's going on the main flagship TV show and not going on freaking YouTube Dark. But he wants to convince you that it's the same thing, but we all freaking know it is not the same thing. I don't have all the answers, but damn it, I have some. The reason why the MJF and Jon Moxley thing is working, and I talked about this in yesterday's jab, is because we have a traditional heel, a guy who talks trash, who blurs the lines of reality and kayfabe, who you want to see the face, Jon Moxley, get even with the loudmouth, crap-talking heel. That's why this works. That's why MJF works. But Cody says none of that matters. Cody says it doesn't matter what show they're on. It doesn't matter if they're a good guy or a bad guy. We're not going to subscribe to those traditional definitions. We're not going to subscribe to that traditional vernacular. We're just going to have fun and play with our friends and keep the same 650,000 people watching every week. We're not going to grow and get to where Raw is or SmackDown is or get to that next level. We're just going to stay right here with our little inner circle of friends. Well, damn, Cody. Thank you for unofficially being part of Prove the Jag Wrong. The fact that you left town after I said, what is the story you're telling with Lance Archer? The fact that when I asked, what is the storyline? Or why do you have Brody Lee in this spot? Why are things happening in this traditional sense that you say is a non-traditional environment? You had no answer. And you left town. And it wasn't that you got busy, you had to go record something, you had some executive meeting, because you're still tweeting right now. So you had no answer to what the Jag had to say. You had no answer to what I had to say. You had no answer for the storylines questions or the Brody Lee questions, which tell me that I'm right. You're wrong. Who's next? Who wants to attempt to prove the Jag wrong? One of the executive vice presidents of one of the second largest, let's say, wrestling company in the world just took on the Jag and lost. Do you want a shot at the title? Do you want to try to make your case or make your argument? Hit me up in the comments. That's going to do it for Jag's Jabs. You can find me on social media. Cody knows where to find me at AKA The Jag. And also you can find the show on social media at MakeMeAFan316. And I will see you next time. Take care.